KOGO News Time, 6:11.
Governor Brown has signed the California Equal Pay Act, which gives female workers in California new tools to challenge gender-based wage gaps.
Now, to talk about how this is going to work and what it actually means in the workplace, San Diego attorney and business ethics professor at San Diego State, Wendy Patrick. And Wendy, according to the legislation, you will be able to allege pay discrimination based on the wages a company pays other employees who do substantially similar work. But how do you even know what they make? Oh, Dr. Patrick. Hello. Sorry about that, Doc.
It's one thing to say that you have the same job, right? Everybody's got the same title that says the same thing on the business card. But when you actually look at what somebody does, that's traditionally been the way we try to make a comparison. This law is different. You're going to actually look at the kind of work somebody does. But you're right. How do you ever make that exact comparison? Hopefully there will continue to be ways to make that determination, because under the law, it's just not fair to say that regardless of somebody's job title, if you've got two employees, one male, one female, doing the same thing, even if they work maybe in a different branch office, that they shouldn't be treated equally.
So the legislation also puts the burden on employers to prove a man's higher pay is based on factors other than gender. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that we've been trying to do this for some years now. In other words, lots of employers have been very aware of the lawsuits that have sprung up from, really gender inequality in the workplace. When you look at what we're getting paid nowadays, there is still this phenomena that men are getting paid more. So employers for years have been trying to make that justification. Lots of memos and notes explaining who exactly does what and why they deserve the higher pay. Under this law, it's going to continue. It basically validates what I think employers have been working towards for years, to make sure that it's fair, that regardless of gender, if you're doing a particular job, you should be getting paid exactly the same, whether you're a man or a woman.
Now, let me play devil's advocate here, because critics have said that the wage gap doesn't tell the whole story. Women take more time off for maternity leave. Sometimes they leave the workplace to raise their kids, and then they come back to the workplace, or they'll do it for a couple of years, and that men don't do that as much.
Yeah, LaDona, you bring up a great point. A couple other factors that factor in here is they also want to look at seniority. They want to look at experience. In other words, there are different kinds of credentials that factor into this analysis other than what do you currently do for a living and how much are you getting paid. They cannot take into account factors that they couldn't have before, such as do you think you're going to go on maternity leave or are you going to have kids? But they can take retrospective factors into account, such as where did you work before? What kind of skills do you have? How much experience do you have doing this particular job? So there's going to always be other factors in the mix, but still employers are going to have to look at those factors with really the perspective of what are you doing now and how similar is it to somebody else with the same background as you and do the same job.
Now, it also protects workers from discrimination and retaliation if they ask questions about how much other people earn. Is that a good thing to do for the workplace?
Well, again, that's a great question, and it's also a question that's being asked by employees for some time. They've been wondering this because that's how we know, and that is why there's always been this objection to the fact that men are making less than women, because everybody's been asking these questions. So there's always ways to find out who makes what, and, there's so much available even publicly nowadays that this is just one more way to try to equalize the playing field in the workplace, even if it's not in your immediate workplace, and even if it's not the immediate job title, people just have to be compensated the same for doing basically the same thing.
Dr. Wendy Patrick is with us here on the KOGO News Live Line. So you just ask your coworker, hey, Fred, how much do you make? And he's just going to tell you?
Most employees would never do that. And I don't think they did that before. But there's just too many other ways to get that kind of information. If you're curious, which a lot of people are in this economy, you can either look online, you can try to get it through a third party, but there's lots of ways to make sure that, you're getting your fair shake. And when you think about it, anybody listening probably has an idea as to what they make relative to what other people make, because those are questions that we've always wanted to know.
All right. San Diego attorney and business ethics professor at San Diego State, Wendy Patrick, thank you for your time this morning talking about California's equal